Hey guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another video. So today I want to step in the self-improvement loop. Are you overlearning and not actually improving? Are you gathering information but not actually using it to your benefit? Because the idea is learning a new skill is a must. But how do you take that information and practically use it to improve yourself or your life or your family? So when it comes to education and learning and all this stuff, the idea of reading countless books, I typically read between 7 to 12 books every year. Is it worth it? Yeah. Could I have improved on that? Yes. Could you read less books every year and get more value than I personally do? I'm going to say yes after what I've learned, and I'm going to share with you in this video. This whole idea is pretty much this improvement loop, this cycle, this recursion of us learning new information, but never practically using it and putting it into something that will bring you value and allow you to go from being whatever you are, whatever you're reading about. This like motivation of Steve Jobs growing up, or Elon Musk growing up, or Donald Trump going up. All these people coming from very little or nothing to becoming powerhouses in the world. How do you take that information and apply it to yourself and become something maybe not that big, but at least something better than nothing? Now, like I said myself, I have 2 university degrees, a computer engineer and a business degree. Both of them are invaluable. They have so much value just having these skills I've learned at university. Granted, like 80% of my university time was pretty much wasted on stupid classes, going through like gender studies and language arts and all this nonsense that to some people have value, but for what I was going for, did not have value. And this is a big reason why I think education is moving online, because you're allowed to navigate your education to what you actually need. And I understand the debate that, hey, if you're taking an economics or something that's outside of your degree, you learn something you probably never would have learned before, and it might open your eyes to new ideas and theories. Sure, that is a great thing, but that's where my reading comes in. I read a lot of books, biographies, how-to books, those types of style books, and I learn from them, and those help me explore. So the idea here is you want to take this information you get and don't keep learning. When you finish a book, don't just close the book, say, good job, David, I've finished another book this year, on to the next, and just start reading the next book. Once I finish a book, I don't allow myself to read another book for at least 2 or 3 weeks, and I put into play what I learned from these books. Example is the Ashley book written about Steve Jobs' biography, his whole life. The only book Steve Jobs personally approved of is a biography of his life. And I took so many notes about what Steve Jobs did, from going to Reed College, dropping out and why he dropped out, to going to India and getting these ideas, which might have been hallucinations, let's be honest, but coming back and taking those ideas and building Apple of what we know today. The point being is, take this information from books like the Steve Jobs books and how do you apply it to yourself? And I took this as, I started looking at my education as I shouldn't just take education because it's education. I should take notes. I should value what I learned and practically use it in my life. And Steve Jobs took his time, his learning in India, brought it back to the West and built up on it. This is what we need to do. This is how you stop this like learning loop where you're learning so much. You're getting all these facts, but if you don't use the facts, they're pretty much useless facts. And this reminds me of that movie, Never Back Down. It's a movie about kickboxing, guy moves to Florida, but he has a little brother, and his little brother knows so much useless stuff.
72. A flock of geese had 72% more flying range than a beach bird flew alone. 1,392.
Number of useless facts in your head.
These are the facts that if you don't take them and use them in what you're trying to improve your life in, become kind of useless. So when you read a book, you need to take notes and then put it down and start taking action on a book. Just reading a book doesn't make it an achievement. It's a step towards the final goal. My university degree was an awesome thing, but I had to do the whole. I had to study. Like I would go to school for maybe 3 to 4 hours a day, university, and I would study like 7 or 8 hours. I was studying more than I was actually at school. And this is the principle that people seem to miss living out here in Vietnam. You hear me criticize the education. That's a big flaw I see, is these kids go to English centers for 3 or 4 hours a week. But when they go home or study, it's a 0. They don't study. And it shows in the results because students will sit at an English center for 5 years and not speak English. If I was in America, which I was, and went to a university or a community college, which I did, and learned Vietnamese in a community where Vietnamese isn't spoken, which I did, I was able to learn a vast amount of it, improved on it, within about 3.5 4 weeks. It's completely possible. You can't just go to a school, you can't just read a book and expect magic to happen. I never thought understanding Vietnamese culture to the extent that I did would ever benefit me. I just thought it was just part of life. But when I moved to Vietnam, the things I learned growing up are such value. What it used to be useless information then is now high value information. So use the information you learn and inject it into your life and build it towards what you're trying to do. Don't just learn stuff for the sake of learning stuff. That's a waste of time. It's a waste of brain space. And for a lot of you that go out there, you read all this stuff and you don't know what to do with it, I can totally understand. You read a book about something that shows you how to grow, how to build, how to have a new idea, how to start a business, how to invest, but you don't know how to use it. Sometimes you just need to sit down. You need to sit down with a pen and pad and just start taking notes. And lucky for us, when this video is being recorded, ChatGPT is a thing. So you can sit down with AI and you can have a real conversation with AI about your ideas and how you can implement them in your own life. Tell the AI who you are, what you want to do, what your goals are, and tell them what you've learned and how you can implement this and put it together and create that idea, because that's what you ultimately want to do, is create an idea from what you learned. Again, I'm going to have to keep repeating this, but learning facts and never using them is a waste of time. And another way to really digest these ideas is going for walks. Going to sleep early. Having improper sleep will hinder your ability to improve yourself off new information. Our brains functionally figure things out when we are relaxed. When you're going to sleep, you're going to wake up like, oh my God, I had an idea. I always sleep with the notepad near me. I have my iPad, my Apple Pencil next to me every time I go to sleep. Because sometimes I do wake up with a weird idea and I write it down and go to sleep. And I wake up and I read it and I'm like, what the hell was I talking about? Or maybe it's a click like, oh my God, that's the answer. Also, when you go out for walks, I go for 10-kilometer walks. I've had to stop since I've been to Vietnam, because Vietnam is such an I guess I don't want to say uncivilized, but it's chaotic to the point where you can't go out and walk at parks and sidewalks because you'll get ran over. It's too noisy, it's dirty, yada yada yada. So I've had to cut back since I've left Singapore and Thailand. But when I was in those countries, I would go to parks and walk for 10 kilometers and I would think. And this leads me to an awesome book that you guys should read. And it's called Tiago Forte's Building a Second Brain. I'll put a little image up here for you guys to see the book. Download it, read it. This book saved so much of my time and really built, because some of our biggest ideas happen when you don't expect them. Solutions pop in your head and you're like, oh my God, that is such a cool idea. When I get home, I'm going to implement it. But when you get home, you forget that you even thought about it. So when I'm walking, I'm out doing something, I always take notes. And when I go home, I sit down and I filter through this. Make sure you take notes of what you're talking about when you're out there digesting and your brain is kind of putting things together. Read that book. Building a Second Brain is one of the better books I've read in the last 5 years, because it allowed me to be free. It allowed me to separate myself from constant work and grinding. It allowed me to relax. And when those ideas started to come together mentally, I had a spot to, I knew how to record those ideas. So later on, I could put them into action. So in general, I hope this video gives you a good idea. It's a very vague overall idea of what I do, but it is a good one. When you read books, take notes. Don't allow yourself to read a second book until you've taken action on the past book. You shouldn't be spending weeks, months reading books. Just reading a book about statistics or something doesn't make you better. You have to take that stuff and put it into your everyday play. Also, read the book about building a second brain. Start taking notes, because you have to take breaks. If you are spending all your free time learning and you're never stopping to let your brain process, or you're stopping to take what you've learned into actions, you're wasting your time. Reading 1,000 books more than me in a lifetime does not make you better than me, because I can read 10 books a year. You can read 100 books a year. I probably will make more money and have more results than you ever will, because you were too busy reading and learning without implementing those ideas. So get that Second Brain book, understand how to free up your time, and use the information that you learn from these books to self-improve yourself. And don't get stuck in this constant cycle of a self-improvement loop, because at the end of the day, learning without actually doing is a complete waste of time. If you have any questions, guys, leave comments below. I'm generally curious on what you think about these ideas. These have worked for me. I learned real fast that constantly learning without taking action is the biggest dead end that you could ever do. So with that being said, guys, I'm gonna get out of here. Thanks for watching, and I will see you again.
Keep going. Don't give up. Never give up. Never back down.